What's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I want to share with you what I think could potentially be the single best weapon in all of Wonderlands if properly taken advantage of. I'm sure you guys have heard and seen plenty about how strong the liquid cooling, Queen's Cry, and Cryo SMGs all are, but today we'll be talking about a weapon that you hear significantly less about and has a potential to be just as strong, if not even stronger, with the right setup. I plan to keep the video pretty short, and YouTube typically isn't a big fan of that, so if you enjoyed the video, a like would be greatly appreciated, and feel free to subscribe for videos similar to this one. Alright, so first off, obviously I want to show you guys what the weapon actually is, and explain to you the reason that it is so strong, and then after that, I will show you guys some ways that you can take advantage of it right now, and make its damage scale out of control. A lot of things that you can't really do for most of the other weapons that exist in the game. I plan to make an entirely separate build video focused around using these weapons. I'll probably upload that tomorrow, so feel free to be on the lookout for that, but otherwise I'll give you guys pretty much most of the tips that I plan to use, or most of the interaction that I plan to use with that build tomorrow within this video, so you guys know how to fully take advantage of this item. I do need to do some more testing when it comes to that build, but I'll still briefly explain to you guys what my idea is for it. Anyways, let's just get right into it. Also, I'll show you guys some testing to substantiate my claims of this being really good. So anyways, the weapons that you're looking for, which I'm sure you guys have seen before and you have maybe used, and you're probably wondering, you know, these things aren't all that good. They're pretty good, but they're not that good. Well, let me tell you on why they are good. So the weapons that you're looking for is a Furior pistol called a Fear Not, where when thrown weapons, or when you throw a weapon, it is going to transform into a Pixie Companion and shoot enemies before exploding. So as you can see, whenever I reload, I get a little Pixie Companion to fly around, and you get a total of 3 of these out at any time. If you throw out more than 3, it doesn't do anything. The alternative to this is a Bloodshot shotgun, where a thrown weapon transforms into a Pixie. These things are also going to work in the exact same way. If you have, for example, an SMG Furior where thrown weapons transform into a Pixie, it is not going to work the same way. Or if you have a pistol that is a Whatnot, it is not going to work the same way. You need it to have the crossbolts increase damage, or you need it to be the shotgun variant. Don't really know why this is. That is just how the game functions for whatever reason. The reason that these two are so strong versus the other ones, they're pretty much the only gun in the entire game, at least from my knowledge. I'm sure there's some other options out there, but these are pretty much the only guns that are actually going to scale off of 2 different types of damage. So these are going to scale off of spell damage and companion damage. Inherently, this is very good because you can get a lot of additional spell damage from a lot of ways, which is going to make this really good, but this also is going to work as a spell. So if you're playing Graveborn, for example, I'll talk about all those interactions with Graveborn later, but it's going to scale off of spell damage and companion damage, and you can increase your companion damage by a ton with a lot of certain gear mods, class items, stuff in the skill tree. There's a whole bunch of stuff there that I want to talk about, but that is pretty much the reason that these weapons are so good. So quickly, I just want to show you guys that they actually do scale off of spell damage and companion damage. So clearly I'm on a completely blank slate. I don't have anything in my spell tree. I don't even have a second class set up, and on this I have on action skill start increase spell damage by 40%, so I don't have an enchant on it currently. As you can see, the damage right there by default is 464. I don't have the enchant active, is what I meant to say. So as you can see, the damage there by default is 464. I'm going to reload so that I get my ability back. Alright, I'm back. Everything is still the same, obviously, but I have my action skill available. So I'm going to pop my action skill, throw this down, and which is going to be a 40% spell damage increase, and then as you can see, the damage went up to 647. Now, just to preface a lot of the testing that I'm going to show you guys, different crabs take different amounts of damage. One of them is going to take 464, and the other one is going to take 484 as the default value. The discrepancy there is pretty minor, and it's still going to illustrate the percentage increase. So already right off the bat, you can see that we do gain the 40% increased spell damage there. And now I'm going to put on a shield that is going to increase my companion damage while my action skill is active as well. Alright, got my action skill back. As you can see, everything is still the same. I'm going to throw out my Ghost Blade, and then as you can see, the damage is now 947, so it is taking advantage of both the 50% and the 40% here, and you can basically stack this with all sorts of companion damage increases and spell damage increases, and there's a lot of interactions in the game where using spell damage and companion damage is going to interact with a lot of other things. Quickly, I just want to show you guys all of the testing that I did earlier, if you're curious about numbers. So 484 default, 560 with 20% companion damage in the form of ring, 555 with 15% spell damage, blah, blah, blah. You can see all this. Feel free to test it out all on your own, but that's pretty much the main gist of it. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that these are not going to scale off of gun damage. So the only thing that you're interested in here is getting an additional spell damage increase and additional companion damage. Luckily, though, there's an insane amount of ways to do that. Not only is there ways to do it in the form of enchants, and like on action skills increase spell damage, or while action skills active increase companion damage, but there's also some crazy rings or sorry, jewelry and class item things that I'm going to recommend here. So first off, one thing let's talk about when it comes to the weapons themselves. Actually, you can get these in any sort of element. The only element that you cannot get the fear knots in is the dark magic one, which is a little unfortunate because I was trying to make a dark magic build with it. You can get it in every sort of element. So if you're planning on using fire, lightning, whatever, you can get in any sort of element, I'm pretty sure there. And then the shotgun may actually be able to roll in dark magic. The shotgun I have not tested all that much, but I'm interested in trying it because shotguns did get a little bit of a buff. And because it shoots multiple pellets, which means that it should have the ability to proc things a little bit more often, which we'll talk about in a second here. So some ways to make the damage scale out of control. First off, let's talk about some gear, and then we'll talk about what is probably the biggest increase of this is Graveborn. Obviously, Spellshot is going to be a massive increase because you get the spell waving, which is going to increase your spell damage, and the ideal way to take advantage of this is going to be with Spellshot plus Graveborn. But Graveborn is going to make this actually get super crazy with a lot of the things within the tree, which we'll talk about. So first off, when it comes to some jewelry, one that is very good is Fate Maker crits increase companion crit chance. So this is going to work immediately because the gun is also going to count as a gun. It's just not going to gain increased gun damage. So whenever you get a crit with the pixie, it's also going to increase its own crit chance, and it's also going to increase its own crit damage. So this is very good. But another one that's super strong is whenever you get a kill, the companion damage is increased by 20%, and this is going to work with the pixie. So you can basically have 100% extra damage with your pixie. Now you probably see why this is so crazy. Some other things that you can get if you're using a fire one, you can get increased fire damage by 10% for each unique enemy hit, and then this is going to stack 10 times, whereas if you're using like a cryo weapon or whatever, you can't take advantage of this. And if you're using a fire one, you could take advantage of this class item, plus this or this other one, and then you could get a lot of other stuff. And then there's also some enchants where whenever your Demi-Lich uses Hellish Blast, increase companion damage. This is particularly good. You could also get a rune, a body rune shield that is going to increase either your fire damage or your companion damage. And then obviously if you're using any rings, you obviously want to go for full spell damage or full companion damage. And there's a lot of stuff that gives you flat companion damage increase in very high increments. I have a class item, I don't think I have it on me, but I have one that has like 40% extra companion damage, whereas you can't really get a gun damage to roll that high because the game is trying to compensate for the fact that companions aren't going to be nearly as good as guns, but your gun counts as a companion, right? So then you could take advantage of that. When it comes to the Graveborn skill tree here, so what's really crazy, unfortunately, Faithful Thralls is not going to work when it comes to using the pixies. If I throw out a pixie here, it is not going to increase my Faithful Thrall stacks, which is a little bit unlucky, but that doesn't really matter. It's weird. This will probably get patched, and if this gets patched, that means that this is even better because you're going to have a few stacks of Faithful Thralls up all the time. But for some reason, it doesn't count, even though it counts as a companion in literally every other capacity in the game. What is incredibly strong about this is Harvest. Harvest currently has a bug right now where anytime that you enter a portal while it's active, it's going to keep stacking on itself. So the max stacks, instead of giving you 9% per stack, it's going to end up giving you like 100%, 200, 300, 500% extra dark magic damage. And this is going to enable your companion to do crazy damage. If you pair this with a Dark Pact here, and then Stain of the Soul, where your spells are just going to deal extra damage, you end up doing a whole bunch of damage with your companion. So as you can see here, I'll get a kill with my pixie, and then I have a whole bunch of extra dark magic damage there. You see, that was my Hellish Blast actually. But the damage on it is pretty good by default. That's the status effect damage right there. Can we get an actual number? I think I saw like 189 is about the damage. But if you end up scaling your dark magic really crazy, this can get like super insane and end up doing like literally 5 times the damage of the normal hits. But what's also pretty crazy is that you can get the Stain of the Soul, and then you can also get Ascension in this tree to increase your spell damage by a lot, but it's also going to work with Blast Gasp, and Blast Gasp is going to scale off of ability damage. So you could play on Spellshot, use the class item that is going to increase your ability damage based on your spell damage, and then because your pixie is actually going to be doing spell damage, it's going to proc Blast Gasp. Pair this with like, you know, a lot of the other things within this tree, or with Spellshot to increase your spell damage, and then all the rings, all the enchants to increase companion damage, a whole bunch of other stuff like that. You end up doing a lot of damage with this. This is also good if you are playing Graveborn and Spore Warden, because with Spore Warden you can get a lot of the increased companion damage and companion crit chance, right? And then you can get Faithful Thrall stacked up even higher because that's bugged out, and then that's going to therefore increase the damage of this. So this is ultimately what ends up being really strong. I'd highly recommend you guys start testing it. The damage that you get from this is crazy, as you can see from the gameplay. I mean, I've done so much damage with these things, it's kind of ridiculous. One thing that I particularly like about them, and what has enabled me to get faster clears with this weapon than with any other weapon in the game, is that you can just throw them out and they'll just fly around and kill stuff for you, which is like incredibly strong and ends up being kind of a lot of fun to use, just throwing it out and just seeing it absolutely decimate everything. And there's so many different ways to fully take advantage of it. I'm really interested to see what ends up being the absolute perfect setup. But hopefully the video helped you guys. If you did, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe for videos similar to this one. Enjoy using the pixies because they're insane.